Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Do it. This is what we agreed to. You have to do it or you're off the podcast.
But it's so demeaning. It goes against everything I believe in.
Say it.
No.
Say it.
No, you can't make me do it, Yokozuna Mac.
Say it!
Fine. Busch Light is the better beer than all craft beer.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
This is Mac.
And I hate you all.
And that is Flaric seething with rage. We just finished up the Natsu basho for 2018. We've got Kakuryu as his fifth Yusho, his first back-to-back Yushos. Tochinoshin won the June Yusho. He also won the Gino Show Technique Special Prize and the Kanto Show Fighting Spirit Special Prize. Sho Hozan won the Shuken Show, the Outstanding Performance Special Prize, and also with Fighting Spirit Special Prizes were Chiyo no Kuni and Kyoku Taisei. A little bit of explanation for what happened at the top there. For the first time in the history of this podcast, Mac won the prediction series, and Flaric lost the prediction series.
I hate everyone.
Yeah. And as you can see, Mac has chosen... Well, Mac, why don't you explain the phrase that Flaric must say?
You know, I would explain it, but I think someone who appreciates beer far more than I do can say it best. Now, please, Flaric, tell me.
I think it's been said, Yokozuna Mac.
I believe it has to be said whenever the Yokozuna requests it.
What? Who made these rules?
We did.
You are part of the group that made those rules.
Just because you weren't paying attention doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Just say it so we can actually get to the sumo part. Busch Light is very good beer, better than craft beer. You guys suck.
It's close enough. It's close enough. It's. You can see the pain on Flaric's face with every syllable.
If I just
saying.
mumble it, does that count?
No, it has to be clear.
I'm just gonna mumble more and more.
All right. Let's break this down a little bit more. As mentioned, Kakuryu won the Yusho. It was his first ever back-to-back Yushos, and the first time that he has won two bashos within a calendar year.
Kakuryu gets a lot of crap for not necessarily being the most deserving Yokozuna ever, but times like this, especially this basho where he had Hakuho healthy the whole time and they faced off on day 15, he really asserted himself as somebody who deserves his rank. And it's a lot to say somebody has to perform better than that to be a Yokozuna in the Hakuho era. Kakuryu's done just about as well as any mortal can in this era, and I think getting these two in a row really cements his legacy.
Exactly. I think all Yokozuna have kind of like a little like black spot whenever they don't have like two consecutive Yushos in a row. I think it's very important, like he came up during the Hakuho era, and I think that's kind of the reason why he got his promotion, because he was just so dominant for so long. And so I think it's just really cool that he finally got his two Yushos in a row and says, no, I am Yokozuna, especially after coming off a year where everyone was saying, hey, he's probably going to retire. Mm-hmm. Like, this guy is kind of washed up.
Yeah, where he could barely finish a basho with all the injuries that he's had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people were saying he doesn't deserve to be Yokozuna, but he's clearly shown that a healthy Kakuryu is more than deserving of the title of Yokozuna.
That is a big if. It's saying if he's healthy.
Yeah,
but it is still the case.
But it's changed my opinion about him, because I know before even we started doing this, before he started doing well, we were all thinking, well, he's going to retire. I mean, he keeps getting injured. He's not going to make it through these bashos. Why is he still maintaining his Yokozuna status? Why hasn't he retired?
Mm-hmm.
And now, thankfully, we see why.
Yeah. As fans who started watching sumo during the Hakuho era, and I mean, we're almost, I got to say, we're probably towards the end of the Hakuho era.
I would imagine.
He might have another peek up.
Either way, though, we're certainly past the point where he wins 5 out of every 6 every year. You know, and I think that because we kind of came into it when Hakuho was still at the top, even if he's not what he was in the early 2010s. It's still tough to recognize somebody as a true Yokozuna when there's somebody who's more than that, wrestling right next to them.
Yeah. And as we talk about how Kakuryu is so very deserving of being Yokozuna, let's talk about a couple of things that he did were not necessarily Yokozuna-like.
Yeah, we gave him the compliments. Now we can crap on him.
He did. Exactly. And starting with his match against Kodo Shogiku with just a very blatant and unrepentant Henka against Kodo Shogiku. How dare he?
That was what I was going to ask. Yes,
Yeah,
it's the question on everyone's lips. I don't know. There's you got to do what you got to do to win, and if you get to be a Yokozuna, you're obviously somebody who's way more competitive than the average person. Not saying that. Not
But
saying
at
that
what
it's okay.
cost? At what cost, man?
The U show. I mean,
Well,
it didn't
yes,
cost him
but-
the U show; it got him the U show.
But how
so.
many times have we seen a Yokozuna pull a Henka? This is the first one in recent memory that I can think of, anyway.
Certainly the highest profile Henka in a while. Probably. I mean, there was Tochinoshin Goedo. Was that in March? Was that the
Yep,
big
that
one?
was this last Basho.
But that's an Ozeki. That's not a Yokozuna.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's not the same thing, but that's probably the closest to this one that we've seen in at least a year or two here.
Yeah. But coming back to I think we had a discussion about Henkas before, and the place where I fell on it was it's something that should probably not be done all the time, but it should be done sometimes. And so I think even though Yokozuna is supposed to show very dominating sumo at all times to be pretty much the best of the best, I still agree it's something you should do every once in a while to kind of keep people honest.
Yeah, my thoughts on it is I'm with Flerick there. It's something that can be used strategically to keep people honest, like he said. And I view Kakuryu as the most, maybe not the most, but he's definitely more cerebral as a Yokozuna. He has to have more of a strategy than just overwhelming power or technique that he can use. He has to. This might be just part of him being more cerebral. I would definitely put Hakuho up as very cerebral, but he also has the dominating physical stats
He can also
as well.
just back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, unlike Kakuryu, he does a lot of pulling sumo. He does a lot less straightforward bull rushing sumo, and I mean he's still winning the number of matches required to cement his position, of course, but he's doing it in ways that aren't quite as I don't know if I want to say fan friendly, but tradition friendly. He's not the traditional dominant Yokozuna the way that Hakuho is a lot of the time. Obviously, Hakuho has his moments too.
Well, yeah.
But Kakuryu seems to he seems to do whatever he has to win without caring about any sort of optics.
Yeah. I will say I know Hakuho has some very blatant Henkas in his record as well.
Does he?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was maybe not the playoff, but or at least the very last day, he pulled a very blatant Henka for the last match to decide the whole entire basho.
That was actually the it happened right around that article on 538, the article that I found that originally got me into sumo. It was right around the same time, and they talked a little bit about the game theory of what a Henka is. But yeah, it was a playoff against Harumafuji. This would have been 2016, 2015, something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, he pulled a Henka in the playoff against a fellow Yokozuna, and the crowd was just dead silent.
I would believe that.
I want to throw a couple more things in here, more about Kodo Shogiku to lead Flerick to what he would like to discuss. The day before Kodo Shogiku faced off against Kakuryu, he faced off against Hakuho, and there's a little bit of a iffy tachi from Hakuho. Clearly his hands didn't touch down, but they both initiated. Gyoji didn't call for a mata. Hakuho ended up winning that match. And then the day after, I believe, Kodo Shogiku fought Kakuryu, he fought Tochinoshin, and Tochinoshin fought him straight up, threw him down with an arm throw, I believe. And so let me go to Flerick for his crazy theory about Kodo Shogiku.
I was going to say, I got some opinions, guys. So I watched that match, and I thought there's something just very strange going on. And so I kind of went, took a couple of some very tasty beers and stuff, and just kind of went into the forest for a while.
Now wait, Fleck, were they bush light?
At the time, my opinions were different than they were today. So no, they were not. But I digress. But so no, I went in there and I just kind of thought over and over about this match, and I came to the conclusion of that Kodo Shogiku, the reason he's getting Henked all the time is because he's actually a dick.
It could. It has nothing to do with the fact that he usually just bull rushes straight on, and so it's a very easy thing to do to get
No.
versus Kodo
Hold
Shogiku.
on.
Flerick and his bush lights in the forest came to this conclusion with lots of scientific evidence. Think back to last year when he was going to get he was potentially getting back to his Ozeki rank, and he got a blatant henka from Terano Fuji.
But that's clearly because Terano Fuji is a heinous person,
evil
correct?
man.
I was going to say, so like my evidence that I came up in my drunken kind of state. While I went through that
Drunk
was,
with what?
moving on. I saw this video of Teru Nofuchi, like he was kind of giving kind of a tour of the whole whichever Heya that he belongs to, and he looked like just the biggest teddy bear ever. He was just happy lifting these just way too heavy of weights and just kind of showing off his muscles, but he just looked really, really nice. Another thing during Harumu Fuji, he is actually someone who defended Takanoiwa when he was being called out by Harumu Fuji. Harumu Fuji said, like, if you want something, you want to ask something, just like talk to me. And Tochinoshin said, we can't say what we're thinking.
I think you're mixing up a lot of names here.
Harumu Fuji and Tochinoshin.
Tochinoshin has nothing to do with it.
Hold on.
Teru Nofuji defended Takanoiwa, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Teru Nofuji defended Takanoiwa when Harumu Fuji was going on his karaoke remote rampage.
I should not have let this happen.
Yeah, so
what you're saying is that Teru Nofuji seems like a pretty nice guy, and for him to do something as awful as that Henka,
Clearly, Koto Shogaku's a dick.
You're
Wow.
Clearly, I'm getting to a point.
Are
here.
you trying to
All right.
change our
I'm
opinion
getting
of Teru
to-
Nofuji?
No. The point I'm trying to say, fine. The point I'm trying to say is just that Teru Nofuji is just a very nice teddy bear, and like everything I've seen, he seems like a really, really good guy. Kakuryu is the exact same thing because he seems like a literal embodiment of a humble Rikshi. Like he just really wants to do good sumo and happen to become a Yokozuna. That's my impression of that guy. While Giku, he just keeps on getting henka'd. He doesn't put his hands all the way down, and I don't know. He just seems like a terrible guy.
it's a very sound theory that you've got here.
All right.
One too many bush lights for Flair.
I agree.
And unfortunately, we're moving into another topic that Flaric wanted to discuss. So Flaric, Flaric, Kakuryu in his match against Tochinoshin on day 14, Tochinoshin had a grip of the Mawashi of Kakuryu, but clearly you could see that it rose up on Kakuryu, not allowing Tochinoshin to get the power required to lift him out of the dohyo, and Tochinoshin ended up losing that match to Kakuryu. What are your thoughts on that?
This is kind of more of an open discussion, but do people think that was a factor in the match, and if whether or not he actually did it on purpose, and whether or not it's actual legit strategy?
You're referring to like having a looser Mawashi that prevents getting that good power grip, right?
Exactly. So bring off. Do you think it was actually played a factor in the match?
I do think it played a factor in the match. I think you lose a lot of power when that grip slides up on somebody like that. So I think definitely if the Mawashi hadn't slid it up, it could have had a different ending for that match for Tochinoshin.
Yeah, I think it's a big question of leverage. Like when you have a grip, as Tochinoshin wants to try to do, when you have a grip right at your own waist level or so, you can really put the power into it with your legs, lock your arms in place, use your arms to maneuver. But when your arms are all the way up at like your nipple height, you just don't have that power to lock them in place and use your legs to push and lift. So I think it's very clearly a factor. And I think part of it is that Tochinoshin, instead of getting under the Mawashi, getting both layers, getting the full grip, he definitely only had part of it. He only had part of the layer, which allowed that front part to slide up. But as far as if that was an intentional thing, or if the Mawashi was tied differently, I do think that it had to be done on purpose, because otherwise we'd see that at least occasionally, right? Mm-hmm. But we almost never see that nearly that
bad anyway.
Yeah, nearly that far up on somebody's gut. Kakuryu, like he basically was wearing a Mawashi and a bra. Like it was all the way up over his chest, where Tochinoshin could no longer get the lifting force.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I very much kind of agree. I think it did play a factor. It's hard to kind of say whether or not it was on purpose or not, but I think it is a legit strategy, kind of something to think of. It's one of the variables you can adjust going into a match. And so, if you know someone who's been lifting up a lot of people, I think it would be really silly not to do. I would like to go more into the match in general. I don't think that played part of it, but I don't think it played an entire part, because I think Kakuryu did a really good job. I was kind of talking about this before. Like during the match, he made sure like his strategy going into that match was, I'm not going to get lifted out at all. And like the first kind of grip he got was like a double, like really deep grip.
He was wrapping all the way around
was,
Tochinoshin. He had his grip on almost the back,
on the other side,
right around the
Mawashi.
knot.
Exactly, a Moro Zashi, I believe it's called. And so I think that just makes it so he can't be lifted up at all. I think that is much more important to him not being lifted up and staying in.
Well, because that's how Tochinoshin wins most of his matches. It's
Exactly.
usually with the Yorikiri force out with a firm grip on the Mawashi.
Yeah, and Tochinoshin, where he gets the most power, like we were saying, he gets the grip at his own waist level. but also he kind of gets like a 9 and 6 position, like on either side, right at the hips. That's where he goes to lift. So, like you were saying, Kakuryu goes for the defensive grab, where he puts his arms all the way through, all the way around to Tochinoshin's back, and it just makes it so much harder for him to be lifted. I think I completely agree with that as a strategy for the grips. As far as the mawashi, I think I would put that, and it sounds like you're describing it the same way, but I would put that on the level of like maybe not quite as dishonorable as a henka, but in that same ballpark. It's something where it's dishonorable. I mean, strong word, but
You're
it's a
expected
strategy.
to have a tight mawashi.
It's a strategy that's not necessarily fully straightforward, fully in the dignified warrior spirit, or however you want to phrase it, of sumo. It's kind of a sidestep, it feels like, but just like a henka, it's something that you gotta be able to account for. You have to have that game theory idea going in that it's something that could be out there.
Exactly. I think it's a legit thing you can do. I think it's within the rules, and so I think it's definitely not as flashy as a henka, but when it happens, you have to kind of be paying attention. But I kind of agree in the same thing. Like, maybe not the most honorable, but I think it's something. It's definitely something. If you're trying to win a Yusho, you should be thinking about.
It's a trick you should have in your bag if you're going to be somebody who's a yokozuna, or somebody who's competing on the level where you're going for every single win to get the Yusho. So I agree it's something that you should maybe account for. But
Yeah, and I know for the conversations of like people calling out like, oh, this is so dishonorable, there have been videos of Tochinoshin having a very loose mawashi as well. Whether or not it was on purpose, again, it's impossible to tell, but it happens in sumo.
Yeah, and it happened to Tochinoshin in that match, and he did have himself a very good basho. He ended up with a 12-3 record, the June Yusho, and 12-3. No, 13-2. 13-2, because Kakuryu was 14-1. He was 13-2, lost to Shodai and Kakuryu. And so with that 13-2 record, that will complete his Ozeki run of 3 impressive bashos in a row. He ended up with 37 wins in these 3 bashos starting in January. Got 1 Yusho and 1 June Yusho. And he had a 14-1 record, a 10-5 record, and a 13-2 record. And it sounds like it's already been confirmed that he's getting that Ozeki promotion. They're just going to be making it official on Wednesday.
And 5 special prizes in those 3 basho.
He's done quite well.
Yep, he got the Gino show twice, he got the Shuken show twice, and he got the Kanto show once.
Yeah.
And I believe he's also tied for the most children during that run as far as active Rikishi. Yeah, he had his daughter was born within the last couple months.
Yeah, right
I say
before
tied because
his
I know
Yusho.
Ishiura had a kid too, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of hard to have more children than that in a 6-month period, unless they're twins.
Right, tied for first place at 1.
And we know Ishiro is on his Ozeki run like right now.
No, he's not. He must be 6 and 9.
Anyways, though, how does that compare to past Ozeki? I mean, it's pretty clear at this point. Nobody's doubting that it's going to happen, but how does that compare to recent Ozeki runs?
So, yeah, he came up, I believe it was like 37 wins over 3 bashos, and had like it was 2 Jun Yushos or just 1?
1 Yusho, 1 June Yusho.
2 Jun
Literally
Yushos.
just said that 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. And so we
Floric
have
was on his phone again,
exactly.
looking up Mawashi tips.
It's been a long weekend, guys. It's so hot out. But I digress. So the Hakuho Harumifuji, they both had similar Ozeki runs where they had 35 wins with 2 junior shows. And we just know that recently Takayasu had 34 wins. And so that's kind of, even though those very dominant, modernly the 35 wins have kind of been the gold standard that have been kind of top notch. And Tochinoshin has actually just exceeded that with a 37. I think the last time this happened was with Wakano Hana, Yokozuna from the 90s, who actually had an identical run to him.
That's pretty cool. I think it's also worth noting we heard rumblings that one of the other qualifiers they were looking for was Tochinoshin finally getting that win over Hakuho. And he got it this time around in just a thrilling match. That was an excellent one. But that puts his career record against Hakuho at 1-26.
He did it. Hey, he still did it.
Yeah.
He did?
It's very hard to beat a man 26 times in a row. All right, speaking of Hakuho, he had himself a little bit disappointing of a basho. I mean, for any Yokozuna to go 11-4, unless you're Harumifuji in the Aki 2017 basho. But definitely not looking like the dominant Hakuho that we are used to. lost the final 3 days to Tochinoshin, Ichinojo, and then finally Kakuryu. Didn't even factor in the Jun Yusho race. So what are you guys' thoughts on Hakuho in this basho?
We mentioned it a little bit earlier that he is probably on the downswing here. Getting 4 losses in a basho isn't completely unheard of for him in his prime. He had 3 or 4 lost bashos sprinkled in there now and then. But with the injuries that have been piling up, I think it's got to be a sign of decline.
We know that the Shimpan and the Sumo Association have all been on him for his style, which he claims he's had to adjust to keep up with a lot of the younger Rikishi. He was famous for that slap right off the tachiai to disorient his enemy, and then he would just bull rush into them afterward. He's continually having to adjust his style, redo his brand of sumo to compete with the younger and tougher guys, and I think it's starting to wear on him.
Yeah. Going off on the kind of decline thing, the last 2 bashos were bashos where he had to pull out, which in his entire career, that's the first time he had 2 consecutive bashos where that actually happened. And so...
Yeah, and I mean, it until recent years, it was very rare for him not to have 2 consecutive not Yushos in a row. So, I mean, the bar is continuing to lower for him as far as, what constitutes a success.
Exactly. I know in the past he's always said he wants to keep playing until the Olympics, because which is, I believe, 2 years away or so.
Yeah, summer 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The big reason for that was because his dad was actually an Olympian, and so he wanted to kind of do that so his dad could see it. But now that his dad's passed along, whether or not he wants to tough it out for a couple more years after already a really stellar career, I think we have to kind of wait and see.
I guess you could call it a pretty good run.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Above average.
Yeah, and we know he's coming back from the toe injuries. Those were still wrapped up in this basho. That could have definitely affected him. He also gave up a kinboshi to Abi, their first matchup against each other. Very rare to see that happen against Hakuho, where he loses his first match against somebody.
Yeah, when he loses, it's usually to guys that are very established, that he's faced a lot. Mm-hmm. Guys like the other Ozeki and Yokozuna. Ichinojo's taken a few off of him. Mm-hmm. Other veterans like that. But a first timer in, what was that? Was that Abi's second match against a Yokozuna? Had he already faced Kakuryu?
I think he had already lost to Kakuryu.
Either way, it's either his first or second match against a Yokozuna ever, and that is super impressive.
Yeah. It's, I think, the third Rikishi to win the Kimboshi of Hakuho in their first encounter. The other 2 were Arawashi and Takanoiwa from Hatsu of last year.
They both happened in Hatsu last year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's interesting. So, yeah, within this last year or so, he's given up that one stat 3 times.
Yeah.
And we do have 3 other guys that were very good in this basho, good enough to warrant getting a special prize. We mentioned them at the top, but Sho Hozan got the outstanding performance. Chiyo no Kuni and Kyoku Taisei both got the Fighting Spirit prize. Which one of those guys stood out to you?
To me, I would say Kyoku Taisei. This is something, he's a name that's been around for a long time. There's actually a documentary on him that I've seen it getting posted to Reddit recently. It's floating out there again. It's a documentary from a few years ago, but now that he is in Makuuchi, obviously people are bringing it back up. But either way, I think it's super impressive anytime a guy comes in and in his first try at Makuuchi, gets a rousing success here. 10 wins in his first try. It's not unheard of by any means. It's not like saying that he's
saw the same thing in Hatsu with Abi and Ryuden.
Abi, yeah, exactly. Ishiura even got that, a year or 2 ago. But either way, it's still super impressive. It's not, it's not something that says he's immediately going to be the next Yokozuna, but it means that he's got the talent to stick around and be a mainstay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go with Chino Kuni as the person kind of impressed me the most. He was just. I've always been impressed by this guy. He always seems like to be just put out some really good matches, like energetic ones, and get some good wins. And this time he just finally was able to string it all together to a nice record of a 12-3. And he got a fighting prize just because of that special prize.
And for me, it'd be Sho Hozan, because he's been a mainstay in the upper levels. I've been enjoying his brand of sumo. I always love seeing a good push thrust match, and in this one he was able to topple Kakuryu, which is always impressive when a rank and filer can beat a Yokozuna. I just enjoy watching him go. He's the Sho Hozaniac.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, regardless of his record, he's one of those guys. I'd put Abi in this category too, but guys that are just always exciting.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like whether they win or lose, you know that it's not going to be a match that you immediately forget about and move on from or anything like that. They're
Plus, look at Shohozan's guns, man. You seen that guy flex?
He's got some guns.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
That is not up for debate. That's for sure. Yeah.
And we did have an interesting moment with one of the podcast favorites, Hokuto Fuji. He had a match against Ryuden, I believe around day 10, where Ryuden had 3 consecutive matas to start off the
Pretty
match.
bad, too.
But the second one, him and Hokuto Fuji banged heads pretty hard, and Hokuto Fuji was clearly dazed. He took him a while to stand back up. He was able to get up, didn't look too good, endured one more mata from Ryuden, and then finally on the 4th try, they got the match going. He eventually lost to Ryuden, but on his way out of the dohyo, he was seen trying to walk away, but really couldn't. Kind of just not fell down, but just went
Just
down,
stumbling, wobbling.
Yeah.
He got past the crowd and said, "This is good.
Yeah,
I'm just going to
I'm
have
good,
a sit."
So clearly, something happened to him. Looks like possibly a concussion. We really don't know. We do know that he pulled out of the basho the next day. Sounded like something with like a herniated disc in his neck. We knew he had some neck issues going into the basho. But do you think when you see something like that, I know Japan doesn't have the same concussion culture that America has nowadays, would be
Oh, yeah.
completely different discussion 5 years ago.
Culture as in like the last couple of years where we've kind of woken up.
Yeah, but should that have been stopped once Hokuto Fuji was clearly knocked silly after that second mata and allowed to continue?
Apparently, Hokuto Fuji, he did say yes, I want the match to continue.
In opposition to that, what competitor wouldn't? There's many stories of NFL players lying through their teeth saying, no, I'm fine, I can go back into the game. Why should we believe? This is something that should be taken out of their hands. This was something that the NFL is doing. They have on the sidelines, they have doctors do a real quick check of them, and they've taken like their helmets away to keep them going back into the game, even though they're clearly in a terrible situation.
Yeah, the concussed guy is like the last authority that you need to consult for that.
I entirely agree. I was just kind of making.
It is good to note, though.
I was just getting some context of why the decision
It's
was
not
kind
like
of
they
made.
forced him into it.
Exactly. Of why the decision was made that way, because I think the precedence now is whether or not the Riksha wants to continue. They respect these people. It's their match, their livelihood, and like ultimately, I think their culture right now is they have the final say on how to do stuff.
True.
Whether or not that's right, like I think coming from America's perspective, I definitely would disagree with that. At some point, that has to be kind of taken out of their hands. But it's kind of tough with especially individual sport of where like
it would have to be up to the Gyoji. You don't have your Oyakata at dohyo side to say no, pull him out. He's clearly concussed or anything like that.
Yeah, or the head shimpan or something like that.
Yeah.
But like the point I want to try to say is like with like team sports, if you get concussed, you can drop out for a while. Your team will probably still continue on and do very, very well. Individual ones, like how you do, directly influence how well your career up to that point.
Yeah,
so it's
your
very
next
important.
ranking. Yeah, exactly. For me as a MMA fan, sorry, tangent, but it'll be a short one, I promise. As an MMA fan, I think that sport is a very close parallel here. It's a very individual sport, and every single match is extremely important. But when you are displaying concussion symptoms like this, like in an MMA fight, if you get punched and knocked down, the referee immediately zooms in there and is like, okay, the referee has to take into account the information and decide, is this person able to continue, or is it in their interest of safety to stop the fight right now? And I think if I saw somebody get punched in a UFC fight or something like that, and they went down and struggled as much as Hokuto Fuji did, clear cut. For sure, that fight is stopped. That is a concussion. That man was not in his right senses. That was very, very poor decision for his health to continue there. I like you said, granted, of course, he's going to say, yes, I want to continue, but there needs to be somebody there who has the greater long-term interest at heart. In MMA, that's either the referee or the fighter's corner throwing in the towel or something like that. But it's in a sport where half the time when you start it, you knock heads with the other guy, you should definitely not let that guy continue. I know it's a different culture and all that, but that's something that I feel pretty strongly about.
Yeah,
I entirely agree as well.
All right, let's move on and run through Juryo real quick. Our Yusho winner is our boy Onosho, making his way back into Makuuchi for the next basho. He went 12-3. Looked like we were going to have a pretty interesting day 15 because there are 3 people tied with 11 wins. But Kotoeko and Suru Gisho both fell on that day, leaving it all up to Onosho. He was able to secure the win and get his first Juryo Yusho, I believe, but that could be completely wrong because I'm just pulling that from my ass.
Onosho.
Yes. Very excited to see him back and looking as good as we expect a healthy Onosho to look. Somebody else
fact check, yes, first.
Okay. Somebody else that looked pretty impressive that belongs in Makuuchi is Takunoiwa. He finished with an 11-4 record, so it's good to see that he has fully recovered from the beating handed down to him by Haramafuji, and he is back on track to make it. He won't be in Makuuchi in this next basho, but give him 1 or 2 more with an 11-4 record, he'll be right back in there.
Yeah, he was at Juryo 11, so that's too big of a gap to jump in one go, but he'll probably be towards the top of Juryo and in a great opportunity to jump back up.
Hopefully we'll see him in Aki then.
Yep. Somebody we will not be seeing in Aki is Taro no Fuji. He had a very poor performance. He lost like his first 3 or 4, then pulled out of the basho, and then he came back on day 11 and then lost his remaining matches after that. He's definitely going down to Makushita, which we discussed on the Midway episode would be unprecedented for a former Ozeki, but it sounds like he doesn't want to hang it up quite yet.
Yeah, I believe everything we're hearing from his Oyakata and his fans as well. Oyakata from him as well is saying that he doesn't want to quit, and like all this talk, who's saying anything about quitting? And also his fans don't want him to quit either, so he's still young. I think he's going to take this time
25 or 26, so he's got plenty of time.
I think he's going to take the time to heal up, and then I think he's hopefully going to just use his talent to. We found out apparently he was also dealing with like gallbladder stones as well.
Ooh.
Was he really?
Yes.
This poor guy is just
Holy
falling
crap.
apart.
Yeah,
He got
so-
hit with a ton of stuff.
I think what he needs is just some time to kind of rest up and just kind of figure out his medical stuff, and then kind of start training back in sumo, get his strength, his power of the bottom back.
Yeah, and the poor people in the lower ranks that have to go up against a healthy Terunofuji when he comes back.
Oh, that's going to be rough.
So in the span of a few months, he got hit with diabetes,
Yep.
the flu,
Yep.
lost over 10 kilos,
Yep.
and had what the heck?
And I think it was knees, but I mean, everybody's
Yeah.
got knee injuries at
Yeah,
all times.
but-
But yeah,
Dang, that's a lot to get hit with.
you know what he didn't get hit with? A karaoke remote.
That's true.
So it could have been worse.
Or was it a bottle?
It could have been worse.
Might have been both.
I just brought up some his stat page here. When he's healthy, obviously we know that he can be Ozeki. He made Ozeki in 4 years, starting from the very bottom, not even like the Makushita midway rank that you can get if you have university level success. But I mean, if he fixes himself right up, just another couple years, he'll rocket right back to Ozeki. But I feel like there's so many different things going on with him, including things that are very long-term big deals like diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be rough.
Yeah.
And moving down to the lower divisions where we follow some of our favorites down there. Enho was at Makushita 6. He got his Kachikoshi, so we might be seeing him back in Juryo. He was spotted carrying towels for Hakuho again, so showing that even though he was a Sekitori once, he's not anymore, so he's got to do the duties for everybody else in his Heia. Musashi Kuni at Makushita 52 also got his Kachikoshi, along with Waka Ichiro at Jonidan 14 got his Kachikoshi.
Those are the 2 guys we follow because they're Americans.
Yep, exactly. 2 of the legacy guys that we follow, Naya, the grandson of Taiho, I believe.
Yes, the great Rikishi from the 60s, the Yokozuna who had the most Yusho until Hakuho came around.
Yep, he was at
32.
Jonidan 11. Kachikoshi suffered his first loss. He faced a couple of Sandanme opponents, which is a division above him, and he lost one of those matches, which opened the door for Hoshoryu at Jonidan 42 to get his Kachikoshi 7-0 and took the Jonidan Yusho.
Yeah, they were trying to get Naya to lose, it felt like.
Oh yeah, they gave him some guys from the division up. That's I mean, it's a compliment in some ways, but
At the same
but
time,
Hoshoryu, the nephew of another Yokozuna, Asashoryu from the early 2000s, he managed to get the 7-0, and they match make it in the lower division so that only one guy can get that 7-0 at a time. And yeah, since Naya had a loss already, Hoshoryu wasn't going to have to face him, so he managed to get the 7-0, even though he managed to dodge Naya probably the biggest threat in the division.
It's pretty easy when there's a couple hundred people in the division to dodge one particular person.
Yeah, but I mean, if they had both
He's
been
been doing
6-0 on the
bad-
last day, they probably would have matched him up.
He's been doing a bad job so far because I think this is his first basho that they haven't faced off.
Well, they've only had 2 others.
Yeah.
Where
And
they could have. So.
but it is the
But
first time
still,
they haven't faced off,
technically correct.
and Naya has won every single one of those matches.
Exactly, yeah.
All 2 of them.
The person who I think who beat Naya, he actually went on to be 7-0 in Sandame. So
There you go.
his rank
So
might
that's
not,
what it takes. That's what it takes to beat Naya.
yes, be definitely just be talented than what your rank is at, essentially. Yes.
Yeah, so I think either way, both guys are moving up to Sandanme next time.
And just a couple of news-like items to update people on. Kisei no Sato and Takayasu obviously were both Kyujo for this basho, and don't really know that we have any real updates on either one of them. Kisei no Sato is probably going to miss the next basho. Takayasu will probably be back to defend his Kadoban status.
I don't think anything. I think nothing's decided yet so far, but yeah, probably for the most part. I think we have some guys said Kisei no Sato's condition is improving. One kind of big thing coming into this, there's actually no Jungyo between these bashos.
That'll be good.
Oh,
And so
so
they
it's
actually
just-
have time to kind of rest up,
Yeah.
train at the Heia, and actually be very efficient with their practice.
All right, and then another Ozeki who had to pull out of this basho, Goedo. He will also be Kadoban for the next basho. Sounds like he had some inflammation in the cartilage in the joints in his left leg / ankle, and his Shisho suggested withdrawing at day 3, but Goedo stuck it out through day 8 and clearly saw that this wasn't going to work out for him, so he pulled out at that point to further rest his injured leg, it seems like.
So we're going to have some Ozekis that are desperate next
Yes,
time
we
around.
are.
Tochinoshin will be okay, but
Takayasu,
Takayasu and Goedo, they'll both be Kadoban, which means another losing record, and they get demoted.
Another guy who was injured in the Sanyaku ranks was Endo. He pulled out after day 5, I believe, and he re-entered actually on day 10 to lose all remaining matches. So he ended up with a basically 3-12 record, so he's going to topple down the Bansuke yet again, so he's going to have to fight his way back to that Komosubi position.
Yeah, this time around, though, at least it was health that got in the way. I was impressed in the pre-injury matches. He did have some excellent showings.
Yeah.
He showed that like a lot of guys have, if they're healthy, they belong in that ranking.
Yeah. And then we talked about him before, but Hokuto Fuji pulled out after his match against Ryuden, where he was clearly shaken up after their heads bashed. And then going to send it over to Fleric with a little bit of an update on the whole violence in sumo investigation.
Yes. So after the Haramuguzi or
Oh,
Ryan's not the only one who mispronounces
Do you
that one
mean
now.
Harumagazi?
is that how it's called?
It is.
Okay, I get confused.
Fleric.
But anyways,
Man, that was the thing that we made fun of Ryan for now, because he was the
Right?
only one who did it.
the problem is
happy
I
right
started
now.
doing it to be ironic about it, and then I just kind of got
come
confused
on.
by it. But anyways, so sumo violence update. When the whole kind of thing with Harumu Fuji went down, they decided to create a committee to pretty much kind of look into to see if there are any more violent incidents that haven't happened, and whether or not there are some violent incidents happening currently right now. And what they kind of found out is they could not rule out the existence of any violent incidents either that happened before or currently happening. So they're kind of essentially going to be taking more time. They decided to expand the search to Rich who have left the Sumo Association in the past 10 years, and they're hoping to report their findings sometime in the fall.
So they haven't proven that there's not violence, but they just haven't found new evidence of current goings on. Is that what I'm hearing?
The way I kind of took it is there's no conclusive evidence either way.
I see.
So there might be something going on. They just kind of need to get more information.
Probably tough to get people to talk about that sort of thing while they're currently wrestling.
And that's probably getting their superiors in trouble is probably the last thing they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Regardless of how anonymous they make
That's true,
the tips.
because they're like a family. Like the way it kind of set up is they live together, they eat together, they train together. Kind of calling people out on once bad stuff happens, it's not an easy thing to do.
And some of these guys, they get into it so young, that's just what they know.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not even seem wrong, even if it is, even if they are in a rough situation.
All right. And with that, we're going to wrap up our first portion of this podcast.
Excuse me, before we go, Mac, do you have anything else for our first segment here?
Yes, Fleric, please tell me a little bit more. What's my name?
Oh, Yokozuna Mac.
Oh, very good. Thank you. I was forgetting there for a minute. Tell me more, how much do you really like Busch Light? Is it Busch Light? Tell me a little bit more
Busch
about
Light
this.
is the best beer. It's better than all craft beers as well.
Now, can you go into detail? What kind of craft beers does it beat?
Busch is the best beer. It's better than all craft beers as well.
I think he's going to be. I think he's too much of a beer snob to allow anything beyond the exact letter of the law to happen here.
I know.
It was worth a try, though.
I had to try.
All right, we'll be right back.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast for breaking news with Breaking News.
Good evening. I'm Brea King News. Earlier today, Yokozuna Kisuno Sato did that thing where you think there's one more step going up the staircase, so you awkwardly kind of stomp on the top, and collapsed the restaurant he was visiting with his stablemates. We go live to the scene with our senior seismology correspondent, Art Quake. Art, can you describe the scene?
Thank you there, Bray. Most of us know what that's like when you think there's one more step going up the staircase, so you awkwardly kind of stomp on the top. But most of us aren't pushing 200 kilos now, are we? It's a rough out here, as the building seems to have completely collapsed. There are no fatalities, fortunately, and mostly only minor injuries. Most notably, Ozeki Takarayasu appears to have lost the rest of his already injured arm and had both legs hideously mangled beneath concrete rubble. I spoke to Mr. Yasu, but he says he shall gambarize and expects to be back to training within about 2 weeks. Mr. Sato himself says that he has learned that he must be more careful to avoid thinking there's one more step going up the staircase, so he won't awkwardly kind of stomp on the top and bring down whole city blocks. Back to you there, Bray.
That was senior seismology correspondent Art Quake. Tune in at 11 for the full report and basho updates from our senior ringside correspondent, Ray Nigman.
This has been Breaking News with Breaking News. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Okay, they're recording in the basement.
Let's blend everything.
Where's the blender? Let's put ice cubes in it.
Nah, we're just making some mixed drinks here.
Sorry, I ruined that one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
You think it's
you
think it's easy to get through a podcast?
my ride home was an interesting mix of like this country and like 80s power ballad songs and stuff. I think I.
What are you talking about?
I was talking about my ride home from Minneapolis.
I was about to say, how did that go with the blenders?
Because nobody else is talking about that.
Yeah, I know. I was moving the conversation to something else.
So
That I wanted.
I would also like to move the conversation to something else.
Yeah, so
Okay.
let's do that. Let's move the conversation to this podcast where we're talking about our predicted Bonds K. And when I say our, once again, I mean me, because I'm the only one who cares about this on this podcast. But for the Nagoya Basho, obviously at the top, Kakuryu is going to be your first Yokozuna, followed by Hakuho and the never-present Kisuno Sato. Ozeki, we're going to have a new addition. We will have 3 Ozeki. Tochinoshin will be your top Ozeki, followed by Goedo, and then Takayasu.
And again, those rankings are not necessarily important who's in what order. It's just whoever did the best most recently. So yeah, the
exactly.
2 Kadoban guys will be on the bottom of the list.
Yep, and Goedo ahead of Takayasu because he had at least 3 wins instead of 0 wins.
Ooh, way to go.
Yeah. And Sekiwake, we will have Ichinojo moving over to the east side, and Mitakeyumi, who took a 1 basho hiatus from the Sekiwake position. He was at Komosubi. He had a 9-6 record, so he is back up there. Exactly the kind of performance we expect out of those 2 guys.
Yeah, not much more, but they secured their position. They secured that they deserve those rankings.
I don't know. I think Mitakeyumi has potential to go higher.
Maybe, but not yet.
He hasn't shown it in a year at least.
Give him time. Give him time.
Yeah.
So we had 1 Komosubi jump up to the Sekiwake position, and the other Komosubi is going to fall down the rankings in Endo, so we got 2 new people there. And Tamawashi at Maegashira 1 had an 8-7 record, so he will slide up into the Komosubi position. And Sho Hozan, who was at Maegashira 2, also had that 8-7 record, also got the special prize and the Kinboshi. He will also take that Komosubi position.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry that those are the 2 guys that are going to be moving up. Nobody else in the upper handful of Megashira had that dominating of a performance, so I think it's going to be pretty straightforward, those 2 moving up.
Yep, and then the Zone of Death, Maegashira ranks 1 through 3. I'm going to have Shodai jumping up from Maegashira 4. He had that 9-6 record. He'll take that spot, and I think along with Kodo Shogiku was 8-7. He had a lot of people in front of him that dropped away, so he's also going to jump up into that Maegashira 1 spot. Same story with Ikiyoi. He was 8-7 at Maegashira 5. I think he'll be at Maegashira 2. And then here's a big one. I got Chio no Kuni jumping all the way up with that 12-3 record from Maegashira 11 up to Maegashira 2. I think with that 12-3 record, the special prize there, I think they're going to give that a lot of weight, and I think he's going to jump all the way up into that position. Maegashira 3, I'm going to go with Kagayaki there. He had a 9-6 record. There's a couple people, maybe just one person, Yoshikaze, who was ranked ahead of him, who also had a Kachikoshi. But I think Kagayaki, with the extra win in there, he'll jump ahead of Yoshikaze. And then joining Kagayaki at Maegashira 3, I think Abi, he's only going to drop down one spot there, just a 7-8 record. He had that Kinboshi win over Hakuho. I don't think he really needs to drop down too much further than that.
Yeah, I think with the win over Hakuho, you could even count this as a successful basho for Abi.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, even a 7-8, we mentioned it in our preview and maybe even our midway that we thought Abi was one of the guys that got promoted a little too fast because he overperformed early. Mm-hmm. But I think he's shown that he is the real deal. That Kinboshi over Hakuho and just barely getting that Makikoshi.
Yeah.
I think it's the one minor stumble that is going to slow his rise down.
Yeah. Some of the guys that are going to have quite a large tumble, Daisho, 5-10 record. Actually, I only had him dropping down to Maegashira 6, but Yutaka Yama at 2-13, I had him going all the way down to Maegashira 12. And then also Chiyomaru had a 5-10 record. I had him dropping down to 11 from 7. And Hokuto Fuji, with that injury, he was basically 4-11. I have him going down to Maegashira 15. So those are going to be the big droppers. And so if you have big droppers, you're going to have big risers. And so that's going to be Nishikigi, Myogiryu, Kyoku Taisei. Guys at the bottom of the Bansuke had those double-digit wins. They're all going to see a significant bump up in their rankings as well, I believe. And just to round this out, we got a couple of people I believe are going to drop out of the Makuuchi division. Unfortunately, Aminishiki at Maegashira 16 with a 4-11 record, and Dayamami at Maegashira 11 with a 4-11 record. I think that's going to be just poor enough that he drops out of Makuuchi.
I know we mentioned this before, but there's a lot of buzz on the Twitterverse about Aminishiki retiring after this basho.
Oh?
I've heard some things on Reddit as well about that being a possibility.
He certainly has stuck around long enough. I remember he mentioned after he had that successful return to Makuuchi that he was hoping that he would maybe get to face Hakuho one more time. But yeah, it does not look to be the case. He's just too banged up. He's too slow. It's just not happening anymore.
Yep. And so to replace those two guys we got dropping out of Makuuchi, we're going to have Onosho, who was at Juryo 1. I got him jumping up to Maegashira 10 with an impressive 12-3 record. And then also Kotoeko at 11-4. I got him debuting in Makuuchi at Maegashira 12. And so that is just a quick look at the Bansuke. I made an entire one this time. I'm going to put a link to it. We're going to put it on our blog. We'll put a link to it on Twitter if you want to see the whole thing, and then check out, see how I did when the full thing comes out. I think if I got more than 2 wrong, it's a major disappointment.
Well, it'll fit everything else about your performance here, because I think that there's a couple there that I disagree with.
Why don't you tell me who you disagree with there?
No, I'm just gonna leave it open ended so I look good no matter what.
You could just claim it on the preview episode.
Exactly. But a few minor points that I think are worth at least mentioning, even if not delving too much deeper into. Yutaka Yama, he totally got the bitch slap we were expecting from his first time in the Joy section. He's gonna plummet down the rankings, but I think he was pretty impressive in a handful of those losses.
Yeah.
I think he just got a ton of coin flips that went against him.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely
He put
agree
up
with that.
a great fight. He
didn't
showed
roll
good
over and
technique.
die.
Exactly. He wasn't the kind of like. I mean, we were talking about Teruno Fuji earlier. I just brought up his record. All of his losses are just like simple oshidashis, just getting pushed back. And I mean, that's when you just see that as one match, that's not a huge thing. But when you see basically every loss he had was oshidashi, you can tell that he's not putting up a fight. He's just getting pushed straight backwards. Mm-hmm. That happened a lot with Aminishiki. A lot of his losses were, a guy clearly injured, a guy that just couldn't quite hang physically. But Yutaka Yama definitely impressed me. Mm-hmm. There was good grappling. There was good pushing. It just went against him.
All right, and so we'll move on now to our prediction results. If you're paying attention to the first part of our podcast, you probably figured out who won at this point.
Flerick, why don't you remind him who won?
Yes.
It was Yokozuna Mac. Of
well,
course.
thank you.
So, Fleric, who lost?
I think there's a lot of people who lost today.
But mostly it was Fleric. He was only managed to get 2 points in our prediction series. Mac, the downtrodden, the lovable loser Mac.
Thank you.
Well, at least loser.
No, I'm lovable in my own right.
He got his win.
He got his
my
win. Everybody on the podcast has now won, which makes me a little sad. I was
And
kinda
everybody
hoping-
has now lost. Wait. Oh, wait a second. I don't.
Your time will come, Jake. Your time will come.
I haven't lost yet. That's right.
And wait, remind me, you also have 2 wins, don't you?
I think you're right.
Don't feed into him.
Why not?
Thanks, buddy.
Because it's not fun for me.
Your Dr. Seuss story was pretty good.
Because I'm
It
not
was
better
good.
than Jake. That's why.
Wait, you're recording, right, Fleric?
Oh, what?
I want to take that one out of
Oh,
context.
crap.
I'm going to edit the hell out of this segment.
But yes, Mac, he got 3.5 points in our prediction series. He had Kakuryu getting the June U show, but that's good enough for a half point, even though he won the U show. He had Abi getting a Make Koshi. He had Aoyama getting a Kachi Koshi. And he also had Tochinoshin getting a special prize, which was good enough for the win for Mac. I will point out that I did beat Jake in this one. I got 3 points to his 2.5.
Whatever it takes, buddy.
Now, let's be fair. This came down to the last day. Because on the
Oh,
last
yeah.
day, there were a lot of points in the air, and nobody was sure who was going to win or who was going to lose.
I was pretty sure I was going to lose.
It came all the way down till after the matches had happened because of special prizes.
Yes,
It
exactly.
came right down to the special prizes that barely got Ryan over.
Yeah,
over Fleric.
we were watching live, and none of us speak good enough Japanese to know like when
Or
an announcer
passable.
said
Or passable Japanese.
Or-
or
be
any
honest.
really.
any form of
Really.
Japanese to know when an announcer like said, "Oh yeah, Chiyonokuni, he's getting a special prize." We didn't know that, so I had no idea Shohozan got a special prize, and that got me a point, which was enough for me
which
to
barely
not lose.
put you over the edge.
Yes.
So we drew the winner picks the punishment. That was what we picked. So Mac decided that he wanted to have the loser repeat a phrase of the winner's choice whenever asked. And what was that phrase again?
yeah,
Mac?
my memory's a little foggy. What was that phrase?
Mac, you
Well,
have to
the-
be the one to request it.
No,
though, I
that's
believe.
fine. The phrase that was requested was Busch Light is far superior to any craft beer.
It doesn't sound right when you say it, though. If only there was somebody else on the podcast that could say it.
Too bad
true.
there's not.
Guess again.
Please grace us with your lovely voice and tell us how great Busch Light is.
Upper Slide is the best beer. It's better than all craft beer.
Thank you, Flair.
Good sport, he says as he immediately takes a swig of his craft beer.
I'm done, guys.
That's right. We do drink on the job here. We're not getting paid, so
Yep, indeed.
this is the best we got.
It's okay. We all live here. Nobody's driving home.
All right, let's move on to Jake's fun facts.
We have actually Fleric's got a pretty good one here that he's going to start
This
us off
really
with.
has kind of turned into mostly Flair's fun
I feel like
facts.
we should stop calling it Jake's Fun Facts and just call it the Fun Facts thing because we've had it, I think, where everybody has contributed just some weird crap they found during the basho. So I think we just
The
do
fun
it that
fact
way.
segment.
I think we should debate the name of the topic for at least 5 more minutes.
I mean, we've all got the time, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, anyways, though, Fleric, start us off.
All right, so starting off Jake's fun facts. While I was looking up Ozeki runs for a bunch of people, I kind of noticed something about Goedo. So he had, I believe, let me do the quick math. He had 32 wins over 3 bashos, which is kind of a little bit on the low side, but he had 2 Jinyu shows at the same time. So looking at the record, he actually his first one was a 12-3 Jinyu show.
Could you imagine Goedo with a 12-3 record?
I know, it's insane.
Oh, poor guy.
He also got a Zensho Yusho, but
Bless his heart.
that's another topic. That's weird.
Bless his heart.
So, but then in true Goedo fashion, he actually had an 8-7 the very next basho.
Dope.
So, and then he polished it off with another 12-3 with the GNU show.
Now, we were talking, I believe, in the preview episode about Ozeki runs and kind of trying to compare what Tochinoshin needed to get. And weren't we looking? I think it was Baruto who had a 9-6 record that kind of derailed one of his Ozeki runs. So you would think an 8-7 would derail an Ozeki
Hey,
run.
wait a minute here.
Well, it was
Shrug?
capped by 2 Junyo shows. I mean, it
He
certainly
didn't
was
hit
a
the 30
respectable
He
run.
didn't hit the 33 win mark either.
But it is a deliberation council thing.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
know.
case-by-case
They're not
thing.
hard and fast rules.
Yeah, I think the best thing I can come up with is one of those wins with the 8-7 was actually against Hakuho when he was pretty much winning every single thing. This was back in 2014. So my guess is they kind of said, well, that's kind of a little iffy. But in the era of Hakuho, if you beat him, that's pretty dang good.
Yeah, an 8-7
True.
with a win over Hakuho is probably the equivalent of like an 11 win or something, right?
Yeah.
Might as well be.
Exactly. He's like worth like 2 or 3 Rikishi. But anyways, I just want to make the point because in true Goedo fashion, he went like really well, and then he went kind of okay, barely passable to really well.
Goedo, which is barely passable.
So instead of second week Goedo, it was second Basho Goedo.
Exactly.
Oh well. Okay. So for another fun fact, this is something I kind of want to start doing is doing a little bit more in-depth study on a rikishi that we would otherwise probably not talk too much about. And this one kind of surprised me because Miyogiryu, when he got to 10 wins, which totally surprised me ever since we've been watching.
Jake and I were having a conversation on the final day, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the first time Miyogiryu's gotten 10 wins in Makuuchi. And apparently I was very, very wrong.
Apparently, Ryan is very, very wrong. He has done much better. Miyogiryu is a multi-time Sekiwaki.
He is?
Yeah, he's 31 years old, so he's older than I thought he was. I kind of always, just for whatever reason, put him in the younger guy bucket of rikishi in my brain. But no, either way though,
I didn't know he made it up that high though.
No, he rocketed up the rankings. He had what's called Makushita Tsukedashi. That is when you perform very well in university level sumo. Instead of starting at the bottom, the very bottom division, Jonokuchi, you get started in the middle of the Makushita ranks. So that's only one division below Juryo, which is one division below Makuuchi, the top division. So he started like at halfway because he had such good success in university sumo, and he immediately rocketed his way straight through to Juryo, but then got an injury. He sat out for a while, came back. He waited until he was healthy. So this was a full. He pulled out of one basho and sat out the next 3, and dropped all the way down to the middle of Sandanme. And this is all in 2010, by the way. And then since 2010, on his run to Sekiwaki, by 2012, so in 2 years, he went Sandanme to Sekiwaki 1 East.
Wow.
Yeah, he just flew up there, winning 4 technique prizes in these same 2 years. So since then, though, he's hovered around the top, the Joy area, the top 3 Megashira, the Komusubi slot, Sekiwaki slot. He got another technique prize, a couple Kimboshi mixed in there, but this is all ending around 2013 or so. Since then, he kind of wobbled. He had a couple more injuries, and he did make it back up to Sekiwaki as recently as 2015, but since then he's been slowly declining. A couple visits to Juryo. He's had 3 Juryo Yushos, including one just a couple months ago. But yeah, in these last 2 years, he's kind of hovered around the bottom where he's not somebody that gets a lot of chances to impress. So he could be a guy that's just been, had some injuries here and there, but is very talented when he's healthy. Mm-hmm. But he certainly is a lot more significant than he has seemed for the last couple of years, which to us is our entire sumo experience. Yeah, exactly. But no, he's in the same stable as Goedo and Sadano Umi. That's Sakaigawa Beya. And a fun note here, not only is he getting married next month, but he is popular with female sumo fans, some of whom call out his nickname 22. Apparently 22? A reference to his body fat percentage.
Oh, wow.
How
Only
long
22%?
ago?
How long ago? I don't know. It was on Wikipedia. It counts.
All right. That's fact enough.
That's fact enough. So that's probably as much as we'll ever talk about Miyokiryu. If he's on the wrong side of 30, he's probably on the decline here. But I just thought that was a fun fact because that's not somebody that we would ever have enough time to discuss in length.
31, the wrong side of 30.
Well, yeah.
Anything past 30 is the wrong side of 30.
We're under 30, so we can continue.
Yeah, exactly.
We can call that old for at least a few more years here.
We're not looking so good there, Fleric.
Yeah.
Our time is coming. We're soon going to be on the wrong side of 30.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Don't worry. A couple years after that, when Jake and I get there, then
we'll be on the right side of 40.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why don't I get the rest of the stuff I'm going to cover out of the way so you can stop listening to me?
Woo.
In fantasy sumo, I did a little bit of math just so that we have some context for this discussion, so that I had a guess of where we would be expected to get if we just made completely average picks. And if we made completely average picks, we'd go get around 50 or so for a score, just to put it in context, because this basho, we all did pretty good.
Who won, Jake?
I did.
Who else won, Jake?
In first place, there's Jake, and in place 1B,
No.
tied with him, but still lesser, is Ryan.
A quicker way to say that is Jake and I both had 59 points, which was the most
Whatever.
this
Okay.
basho.
Okay, fine.
And tied for last at 48. And the reason I brought this up, 48, it's not bad. I mean, it's
Not bad. It's below average.
It's much better than the losers have done in our previous tournament.
Also,
That's very true.
Yeah. So Mac and our guest Jonathan, unfortunately, Jonathan could not measure up to some of our previous guests. But no, we had a good time, and he and Mac tied for 48 points.
This is what you get when you pick Goedo and Kaisei on your team.
Yeah, you should have known better.
I should have, but I didn't.
It's kind of funny. We've got a pattern where our guest gets first place, one basho, then last place, then first place, then last place,
Or-
in the 4 bashos that we've done.
Or is it female guests destroy us and male guests are awful? It's one of the two.
We will need to find out this next basho.
We're gonna have to keep mixing it up, trying out different guests, and yeah. So apparently, I think it sounds like we're all agreed here. We're picking guests because of data reasons.
Exactly.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed.
Of course.
That's it.
But to be our next guest for Fantasy Sumo, Ryan, why don't you give us some details?
So our bowl o punishments is starting to run low. I think we got 1 or 2 left in there.
One good one.
Yeah. So to wrap up our first full year of doing podcasts. And so instead of just rehashing all of the old punishments that we had, because we're certainly not going to come up with any other good ones. We're gonna outsource this to you guys on Twitter. If you want to send us your ideas for some punishments that we could do that would work on a podcast, so embarrassing photos, embarrassing video, probably not going to work. Needs to be embarrassing audio. We would very much love to hear your
embarrassing
ideas.
audio, like what we have going on this basho.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed.
So Mac, why don't you make Fleric do some embarrassing audio?
Yes.
Since you can't take the gesture hints here.
No, I'm starting to sympathize with Flick, man. I've been through these punishments, man. But tell me again, how good is Busch Light?
God damn it. Busch Light is the best beer. It's better than all crap beer.
There you go. Thank
Okay.
you.
So yeah,
Wait,
it
what's
has
my
to
name?
be like that.
What's my name?
Oh, Yokozuna Mac.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, and the Yokozuna one, loser calling the winner Yokozuna
That's a
has been a
mainstay.
stand.
That's a mainstay.
We've just decided that one's permanent.
Yep. So send us your ideas, and we'll take multiple ideas from this and use them on our podcast. But the absolute best one can join us in our fantasy segment for the next basho.
Yep. And real quick on our power rankings, we had some significant movement from especially our Yusho winner Kakuryu, gained 72 points, putting him at an all-time high of 1156. That is
Fleric. Kakuryu is the all-time best.
yeah. There you go. Well,
That makes me
his
a little
all-time
happier.
best, at least for the 1 year we've been doing this. Whatever.
Oh, I thought you said he had like the
choo-choo.
highest score we've ever had in our
It's
rankings.
a pretty good one.
Okay.
But he has the top score, but he was not the top earner. That would be Kyoku Taisei. Kyoku Taisei came in out of Juryo, so he had a very low starting rating, and he managed to gain more points than Kakuryu, even though he only had 10 wins compared to 14. Thought that was kind of cool. Other kind of cool facts: Chiyotairyu and Abi, because of the qualities of their wins, the not every win is the same. But what happened is they averaged out and got exactly 0 points. They managed to land on exactly a neutral basho.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of worth pointing out. But next we have our Basho Awards series.
Indeed, the GSB Awards. First
Who are those
up-
presented by Fleric?
Oh, by Yokozuna Mac.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Wait, so I don't have to take any prompting from you.
But you
Well,
did
you're right.
anyway, so.
It worked.
Oh, no.
You can't
Anyway,
take it
on
back.
to the awards. First up, we have the Fat Man Flying Aboard. This is going to Daisho Maru. On day 8, his match against Takara Fuji, he gets a little overzealous and Takara Fuji does an impressive Hataki Komi at the straw bales, and Daisho Maru gets sent cartwheeling out of the ring. It was quite impressive to see him head over heels going into the crowd. Anyway, next award, we have the Ouch Award, which goes to Hokuto Fuji on day 10. Ryuden's plethora of matas. One of those results in a possible concussion. We hope Hokuto Fuji heals from that, but
I
clearly
think it's a
he
little
was
more
dazed.
than possible.
Well, I
But
haven't heard anything
definite
official yet.
vertebrae in the neck issues.
Definitely worthy of the award. That's for damn
Yes.
sure.
Next up, we have the Boom Headshot Award. This goes to Ishiura on day 6 against Dayamami. He does a roundhouse slap against Dayamami for the win. That was quite impressive to see.
That one looked like what I would call a possible concussion.
Yes. Dayamami clearly confused after that shot. Next up, we have the Y Award, and this one goes to Kakuryu. Need I say more? Need I go into detail why he's nominated for this award?
I think all you got to say is Henka and move on.
Okay, thank you. Henka and moving forward.
Well, not moving forward, moving sideways.
Damn it, Jake. Anyway, we have the Henka Fail Award. This had a couple of nominees, and the runner-up for this one is Chiyoshima. On day 4, he does his patented air jump Henka, but in this time, Koto Shogiku squared up on him. His reach was just a little too much. Chiyoshima had his hand behind his head and had a grip on the mawashi, but missed the leg trip, and Koto Shogiku was able to recover and push him out of the ring.
I think Kota Shogiku would have been on edge after that attempted Henka on day 4. He would have maybe thought to look for it against Kakuryu.
You would think so, but he didn't. But the winner of the Henka Fail Award is Ishiura. On day 2, he could not get around Arawashi's arm, and his arm got hooked on his mawashi and couldn't throw him out of the ring.
You could say that Arawashi learned from his mistake as his alter ego, Chiyoshima.
It's like he's doing 2 matches in a day.
Yeah, he's pulling double duty, and the mawashi color is the only thing that changes.
Indeed. Next up, we have the Not Today Award, and this one goes to Shodai. On 2 days, day 1 and day 15, he upset both Mitake Yumi on day 15 and Koto Shogiku on day 1 by pulling out a Tsukinage win right at the edge of the straw bale. It was quite impressive because he was getting his butt handed to him in both of these cases, but then right at the edge just manages a win. Quite impressive, kind of showing off his skill there. But is it something to be said that he does a Tsukinage twice in this one?
I think it's just kind of cool because he's a guy that we used to talk about as one of the guys with the most promise.
I think he was a former Sekiwake.
He's been in Senyaku for sure. I don't remember off the top
Pretty
of my
sure
head
he
either,
was
but,
Sekiwake at least one basho.
But yeah, he's got a lot of potential. So I mean, if he can keep pulling out things like that, and also hopefully, a little bit more straightforward sumo.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have the Not So Fast Award, which goes to Ryuden for his 4 matas. You gotta love a guy that wants to get out and get to that tachi-ai, but 4 matas in 1 basho, that's kind of much.
Yeah, and one of those was a
and one was a
full-on
Was a
knockout.
3-fer.
Jeez. Yeah, 3 of them were in 1 day alone. That was pretty bad. Next up, we have the No Pain, No Gain Award. This one goes to Sada Naomi. On day 12, he pancaked Ryuden falling out of the ring. He picked up the win, which was nice, but he had to pay for it with that one. It was just a deadpan flat falling straight out of the ring. You could hear the crash from the crowd. And I think a few gasps for help as well as the men were falling. Next up, we have the Match of the Basho. Now, we kind of discussed this a little bit, went around the table, had some great points on different matches, but we all settled on day 12, Tochinoshin over Hakuho, when he ends his rut against the Yokozuna. Quite
1 in
impressive and
25 of
quite
all
fun.
time, not 1 in 26, as we may have mentioned earlier.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the things, like the question when it said, like whether or not Tochinoshin could be a Ozeki is whether or not he can beat Yokozuna. He beat Kakuryu last basho. He finally got his win against Hakuho.
But can he beat Kisei no Sato?
Kisei no Sato's
He
undefeated.
never beat Kisei no Sato in his Ozeki run.
That's right. Kisei no Sato's
Oh, my
undefeated
goodness.
in that time, I believe.
Indeed.
But yeah, it was a great battle because all the meaning and history behind it.
All right, and before we move on to everybody's favorite moment of the basho, I did want to take a little bit of time to acknowledge our fans. Once again, we've been just getting a flood of letters, handwritten letters from all of our fans of the podcast. We just wanted to take the time and read a couple of them for you. So let's grab this first one here. What's going on with this one? There's like food wrappers filling it. I don't even know if there's a letter. I got it. All right. Dear GSB, thanks for making me your podcast official spirit animal. I wanted to send you a gift of some of my favorite things, but I got hungry. Sincerely, Chiyomaru.
Hey, wait.
Aw, what a thoughtful fella.
Now that I won, can I start reading these?
No.
Aw.
Ryan's driving the bus.
But I love Chiyomaru.
He is the Yokozuna.
Well,
That's a lot of food wrappers.
it is quite a few food wrappers.
Got a lot of stuff in there.
Chiyomaru's handwriting.
We did.
All right, well, Mac fangirls out. We did get one more letter.
We did get one more letter. This one is just a single piece of paper, not as hard to figure out. And it reads, Dear GSB, 3 out of 4 of you guys are pretty cool. Sincerely, Aoyama.
All right.
Don't know what he has against Mac. So what is everybody's favorite
Hey, whoa,
moment?
hold on.
Hold
on. That's future Yokozuna Aoyama to you.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
And I think
Yes,
it's pretty
it
clear.
is.
I think it's pretty clear who he's leaving out, Ryan.
Indeed.
No. I love his jiggly thighs. Top 10.
There was some good jiggles.
Indeed.
I
Indeed, quite
can't
good.
remember exactly which day. I think it was 14 or 15, but Aoyama hit the dirt, and there was some extracurricular movement going on.
I would have to say my favorite moment of the basho
All right, fine.
was, and I'm going to steal Max here before he has a chance to read it, was
What's my name?
Mac. Tochinoshin.
What's my name?
Oh, it's Yokozuna Mac.
Thank you.
Ryan.
All right, fine, Mac. Why don't, since you won, I will let you.
No. You're driving the bus. Just give me the respect.
Just know that we're unhappy about it.
Yeah.
Never bothered me before. Tochinoshin beating Hakuho on day 12, securing his Ozeki promotion as far as anybody can know. At that point, he was 12-0. Looked like he was going to ride off into the sunset for a Zensho Yusho and get 2 out of 3 Yushos to start off the year. Didn't quite work out that way, but that was definitely a very fun day and morning of sumo discussion after that match.
Yeah, it was a hell of a match on its own merits for sure too. It just showed off all the fundamentals of Yatsu sumo, of belt grappling. It was amazing.
And Hakuho put up a good fight at the straw bales, but couldn't quite hold off Tochinoshin at the end there. And I was telling Jake the morning that this happened, like once Tochinoshin got a hold of Hakuho's belt, like right at the beginning of the match, Tochinoshin's been so good, I didn't care that it was Hakuho. I thought, like, okay, yeah, this match is over. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Tochinoshin's going to win this.
Yep. Healthy, dominant Tochinoshin on his run with all this momentum against a not Hakuho level Hakuho. Yeah, it did feel like it was destiny that it was going to happen for sure.
Let's go over to Flarek. What was your favorite moment of this basho?
I wanted to see 2 Yokozuna face off on the last day to have the consequence of the basho writing on it, and that's exactly what I got. I love the last match between Hakuho and Kakuryu at the end, with Kakuryu winning it and just securing his win. No playoff. He's the Yusho winner.
How long has it been since we've had 2 Yokozuna going head-to-head?
Ages.
I think we discussed it before, and I'm pretty sure it was last July.
Dang.
Yeah. It's been a long time, and especially with having the Yusho riding on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in this situation, had Kakuryu lost to Hakuho,
Would've been a playoff.
Kakuryu and Tochinoshin would have had to have a playoff. So Hakuho just couldn't quite play spoiler. No matter what, he wasn't in the Yusho or Jun Yusho race, but he just couldn't quite play spoiler there.
And Jake, what was your favorite moment?
I was thinking Tochinoshin over Hakuho, but tied with that, I had another one, so I think I'll just go with that for the sake of discussion. But Abi beating Hakuho was also momentous.
Oh, yeah.
That was a huge kinboshi that I really do think that it signals Abi is a real deal. He's a major talent, and he's going to be here to stay. That was a cool moment that really solidified it, even though he got a Makikoshi this time around.
All right, and Mac, do you have anything to add? I know I kind of stole yours there.
No, I'm good. Just I was completely ecstatic to see Tochinoshin finally end his rut against Hakuho. I mean, Hakuho's the king of the ring. We'd love to see him in all of his match glory, but you always root for the underdog, and in this case, Tochinoshin was the big underdog, and I liked it.
Yep.
And we tweeted this too, but nobody beats Tochinoshin 26 times in a row.
No, sir.
Let that be a lesson.
All right, and that's going to wrap up our discussion for the Natsu Basho of 2018. The next time we will see you is for Nagoya, which will be starting in July on the 8th. We do want to take a quick moment to give a birthday shout-out to Testicle Mountain, Kintamayama. It was day 14 of the Basho.
I keep forgetting that's what his name
It
is.
is his name, isn't it?
Day 14 of the Basho, he put in his video that it was his birthday, so just happy birthday, Kintamayama.
Yep, you do
And
so.
thank you for everything
Yes,
you
and
do.
thank you.
Exactly. You do so much.
And so if you enjoy this podcast, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast listening service.
You can find us on Twitter at GSumo Breakdown and on Facebook as well under Grand Sumo Breakdown.
You can check out our blog, grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.com, where we keep details on our fantasy and sumo power rankings.
If you have any questions, comments, or corrections, drop us a line at grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com or give us a call at 805-613-7866. That's 805-613-SUMO.
All right, and until we have a bonus episode,
But wait, Ryan.
but wait,
Flarek, Tell us again, how great is Busch Light?
It is the best beer. It's better than all craft beer.
It's better Gress beer. What's my name?
All right,
Fleric has turned in the microphone.
Fleric has hung up the headphones. He is leaving. And so I'm sure we'll see you on a bonus episode or two between now and Nagoya. So until then, we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown.
Until next time.
Throw your salt high.
And keep moving forward.